Hey everybody, I'm Tom Vasel. Welcome to the Dice Tower as we continue to look at my favorite villains from X-Men, Marvel United. These are my 5 favorite, the best of the best, the ones I like playing against the most. We're going to go through each of them, so let's get started with number 5. Number 5 is Spiral. Cool hero, by the way, and a henchman for Mojo, but by herself. So you don't have the missions anymore. Instead, you have this track right here. Such a fascinating track. So to do this, you need to fill in all the slots. And by the way, there's a separate one if you're playing with blue and gold team, which is also pretty cool. But anyway, you have to fill them in. So let's say I rescue 2 civilians. Great, I put one here, the other just gets discarded because you have to do them in order. Now I punch a henchman. Now I rescue a civilian. Well, it doesn't matter. The next one has to be a henchman. So you're trying to go through this track to win the game. Meanwhile, there's a villainous plot here that's going to be moving along. And so this villainous plot, whenever there's a BAM, you're going to look at the symbol on the card. There's a symbol here, and if that symbol matches the next spot here, you move it onward. I suppose it's possible for it to happen after 6 cards, but it doesn't really. So you have to... So it's going to end at some point. You're not quite sure. So you need to finish this as fast as possible. But this is really unique and interesting. Now, she has, stuff like if you start in this location, you have to discard a card at the bottom of your deck. You start here, you have to discard an action token. You start here, ignore an action symbol. These are kind of similar things that we've seen everywhere else. And then she's moving, teleporting innocents, dropping people in every location, dropping thugs in every location. Check the symbol on this card to see if the spell track advances. Check the symbol on the previous card as well. Oh, interesting. Turning invisible. Until the next turn, you can't do it unless you do a heroic action. So I like this sort of things. It's really interesting. This track alone makes it fun. I like any villain that adds something unique and different, and Spiral is definitely one of those. Number 4 is the Super Skrull. Cool model, by the way. You can see he has all the Fantastic Four. Well, maybe not much of Mr. Fantastic, but he has the Thing and Invisible Woman, Human Torch, the Super Skrull. Now, the Super Skrull does not particularly have a lot of hit points, 2, 3, and 4, but you can't damage him if there's any crisis tokens here. And if you're in his location, you spend heroic tokens to get rid of those crises. But what's going to happen is, first of all, you'll notice that all his cards out here require a move, heroic, and fight to get rid of them, and have a lot of different things that are going to do negative damage to you, especially these Skrull decoys, which you want to get rid of because you need to get those crisis tokens off of his dashboard. He's trying to KO all the heroes at least once, so you got to be careful for that. But the reason he is one of my favorites is because when he BAMs, he does a damage to each hero, then he resolves the symbols of the last card in order. And depending on what they are is what they do. Now, what's interesting about this is you can control this a bit. So you have to be careful when you play a card. You're like, well, this could happen. Because the BAM doesn't always go off, but it could. There's a special effects. He gains his health, and he can go above his starting value. So that's kind of an interesting thing. His cards themselves, there's a lot of typical cards. He doesn't add a ton of things. He's already dangerous enough. But he has these matching power cards. If the next master plan has a BAM, it uses the last 2 hero cards. So that's not very fun, especially when almost every other card has a BAM. So your only hope is to draw 2 of these in a row. I like him. He's hard, as many of these characters are, but you can kind of try to program him a bit, and I tend to like that. Enter the Madman at number 3, Legion. So Legion, the most positive thing I can say about him is all of his threat cards are just personalities, and they require 3 heroic actions, and that's it. They don't do anything bad to you. Here's the problem. He goes through 6 different personalities. So each of these matches different people that are on him. The Clown, the Nazi Doctor, Time Sink, Chain, and Endgame. Each of them is going to play. You put them in a very specific order. They're going to play here. They have something different that they do for an overflow, and they have a different villainous plot. So if there's no civilians, while Jamil's in play, then the heroes lose. If they're all KO'd at the same time with the Clown, they lose. If a hero does not do an attack action on their turn, which can be very tricky, you lose. Ignore any effect that would delay the villain turn. If Legion can't take any damage, if there's any thugs in his location, and finally, he can't take any damage. So you need to basically last through these cards. And you're going to pick some from each of his different, basically they're randomized. You're going to pick some from each thing, and then you just got to go through them. And they're all different. He is by far the most unique character out there. He is going to be the hardest one to prep for. He's probably going to whoop you. He does to me. But he's unusual. He's unique. He's different. He's a kind of a wild card of a hero, I found, and you can see that in my hero rankings. But as a villain, I like the wild card aspect of it. It's just very fascinating. He has a lot of cards, but he's a lot of fun. My number 3, Legion. Now, I said before that I like villains that come in groups. And this is my favorite of the groups, Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch. Actually, it's not my favorite, but hang on. Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch just work so well together because they're doing different things. Quicksilver does the whole thing that we saw at the very beginning, Juggernaut, running around and doing damage to anybody. And Scarlet Witch is kind of doing all kinds of weird things. In fact, she has this really unique card where she puts both her and her brother in the starting location at full health, face down master plan cards, which there will be some of, are shuffled back in the deck. Heroes go back. Heroes are also healed. It's not quite a do-over. Because it doesn't get rid of the missions that you finish. They don't come back. But it's just unique. You're going to be adding to people based on Quicksilver's location. When they're defeated, they still run around in play, but you have to defeat both of them. They're not too hard. Scarlet Witch is 2, 3, 4. Quicksilver's 3, 4, 6. But as long as if these sibling bonds are in play, whenever you defeat them, they go back to 1 health, so you need to get rid of that. If you start in Chaos Magic, you play your card randomly. Trouble Loyalty, this take 4 heroic actions, but it will delay the villain track by 1. These are just fascinating, and I think that them working together, they both feel really different. Quicksilver running fast, she's doing all kinds of crazy stuff, and I like that combo a lot. When I played them, I just had so much fun fighting them. I've lost to them, I've beaten them. They're very unique and interesting, but they're not number 1. What is number 1? Was there any doubt? It's Nimrod. You know what, though? It's not really Nimrod. It's the Sentinels. Now, Nimrod comes with the Sentinels, so I play with them together. And Nimrod is a pretty cool character, I suppose, but I'm more interested in the Sentinels. First of all, these are amazing figures. Now, I've been trying to show you all the figures unpainted, but we wanted to take these to Dice Tower East, so the Sentinels are painted and they're ready to go. And they look really, really cool. And in fact, my favorite is this one here, because he can hold a hero. And you're like, yeah, Quicksilver, what you gonna do? So the Sentinels, now they look cool, but that's not why I like them. I mean, it doesn't hurt that I like them. But there are 3 Sentinels in the game. And when you play against Sentinels, you're gonna assign each hero a 1, 2, or 3. And that Sentinel is hunting you. You assign these tokens to those heroes. Now, if you're playing with only 2 characters, you're just gonna use 2 Sentinels. If you're playing with 4, you use all 3 of them. And then the 4th player will just pick a Sentinel to activate, because the Sentinels activate after every turn. And what they do is they're going to look at the last 2 cards that were played, and they're going to follow the Sentinel activation protocol on this card here. And they're going to go by the symbols there. They're going to move closer to their target hero. They're going to add civilians in location. They're going to do damage to a hero, recover a health, and they're doing all this, but at the same time, they have to deal with Nimrod. See, each of the Sentinels has their own hit points here, depending on the number of players. So you're trying to take them out. You're going to move and take them out as soon as possible, although it's going to make the other Sentinels move faster as you do that. Once they're all out, Nimrod shows up. Here's the problem. You're moving up this activation track, and if you don't watch how the Sentinels are working, if they need to move to your location but they're already in it, this moves up. And when it gets to 15, you lose. When Nimrod shows up, he's under pressure immediately. You can hit him, but his hit points are 8, 10, 12. And he's going around hitting you, doing extra damage if he's in yellow, which he probably is, and then 2 extra if he's in red. And when he kills you, you're gone. They're eliminated from the game. Here's the deal. I've never beaten Nimrod. I've always had Nimrod show up and destroy me. And I don't even care, because it's so much fun to fight the Sentinels. In fact, you can pick one of the Sentinels, and like Sentinel 1 challenge, and just pick that Sentinel and add it to a villain. So the Sentinel's moving around attacking you, following these symbols too, after every hero turn. Which is going to make those heroes harder, but maybe you think, hey, Red Skull's too easy, I'll add a Sentinel to the mix. But this is a really fun way to play the game. It is by far my favorite way to play. These are easily my favorite villains I like it. I believe that the villains are more important in Marvel United than the heroes are because they're more different. That's why I think the list of my favorite villains is more important than the list of my favorite heroes. But I love all 5 of these. Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver. Legion's just so unique. Spiral, I love this way that you have to beat her. Super Skrull. He has a little bit of programming, and then the Sentinels who have a lot of programming. And they're just neat models. They're fun to fight against. Those are my favorite. And that's it for going through the Marvel Universe, or at least the X-Men part of it, and my favorite villains. Thanks so much for watching. If you haven't had a chance, go watch my companion list where I talk about the heroes, my favorite heroes, and reviewed all the new expansions that came out for X-Men United. Until next time, though, I'm Tom Vasel, and you've been watching The Dice Tower.